And
No,
so
you're good.
I'm setting the record. Hello, hello. Welcome to Coming Home to You Masterclass series, where we talk on what it takes and what it looks like to come back home to you, your authentic true self. And with me today, I have Rashawn Renee and Amanda talking on the topic of surrender. We'll also have other guest speakers jumping on and off as the day progresses. So we hope that today is going to be a great, intimate conversation today. So please help me welcome everyone. And if you want just to go and quickly give yourself an introduction and tell me a little bit about you. Okay, let's go Rashawn Renee first.
Yeah, okay. I thought, does Amanda go because she's been here before so people know her, or do I go first? What's the protocol? I am happy to go first. Hello, everyone. So, let's see, I'll make it really quick. This topic, let me start with the topic, and let me start with surrender and trust. My whole life has been about surrender and trust. And my life work is to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be the fullest expression of themselves. And I know that that is through this portal of trust and surrender. So as I sit here from a girl who once upon a time did not trust herself, did not know how to surrender, but once I learned and moved into the world, I've now become the coach of some of the leading organizations globally. Um, I've become an international bestseller, a national bestseller, and have some really huge dreams to manifest in terms of the collective world coming together, understanding how to trust and surrender. I can go on, but I think that's enough for now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Welcome, welcome to the show. So honored to have you today. Amanda Kelly.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me back. It's such an honor to be here. So trust was last week, surrender is this week. I very much feel they go hand in hand. And for anybody who wasn't on last week, I'll just share in brief detail my background. So I'm a soul purpose embodiment mentor. In a nutshell, I work with self-mastery. So my background, it really started with a cancer diagnosis going on 8 years ago. And, I had a lot of the foundational aspects, but I knew that there was a lot more depth to the healing that was not at face value because I was a hot power yogi who could do a handstand and touch her toes to her head at the same time. And I was still diagnosed. So yeah, I don't really do that anymore, but probably could work back up to it if I want. But the point is, it spiraled me deeper into the trauma, into the energetics, and into this aspect of me that was totally shut down, and I did not trust myself, and I was trying to maintain a grip of control on what my life should look like. I kept trying to fit myself into the box, and it was almost a permission slip getting that diagnosis to throw all of that away and to trust the path that my soul was guiding me on and surrender to allowing it to open up. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, in this journey. But like right now, I'm in a portal of deep, deep surrender. I've been guided. So it's very timely for me to be speaking into this. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like with you, everything, and with all of us, when we pay close attention, everything is really divinely timed. And when we surrender to those messages, we see that we are perfectly on the path that we get to be on. Allison, so great to have you on. We're just going around and quickly introducing ourselves and just sharing what brought us on to surrender today.
My next, sorry, I'm late. How are your push-ups going, Amanda?
Oh, they're great. Yeah. I did some more this morning.
Awesome. I love it. Yes, I'm Elsa Stuck. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm an energy and spiritual coach and energy healer, among other things. And similar to Amanda, not as devastating, I was thrown into the spiritual world by being whacked on the head numerous times by the 2x4. You're doing life wrong. Didn't listen, got worse, didn't listen, got worse. Nothing life threatening, but debilitating nonetheless. And years of, am I making that up, or is it really my intuition? And finally, 10 years ago, couldn't ignore it. And here we are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being on today. And so I'm just going to switch up kind of the way we've been doing it. And I have a couple questions, and I think just to get us leading in through the conversation. So the first one I want, and then you could either go ahead and jump on, or I can call you. I'll see how it goes. All right. So can you share a pivotal moment in your life when surrendering led to unexpected growth or healing?
100%. I think we
Yes.
all can. Like, you can't be here if you haven't done it, right? Um, so one of my ginormous ahas, I've had a few, but I'll go with this one because this is not the one that will just knock everyone off their chair when I tell it. So I'll just keep one that'll keep us on our seat, right? Um, it was a medical diagnosis, and I remember sitting in the office. My husband is sitting next to me. They tell me the surgery that I need to have. And every word that's coming out of this doctor's mouth is scaring the bejeebies out of me. And I look on her wall, and she was from Harvard Medical School, and she had her whole wall was just full of awards and accolades. And I look up at the wall, and I'm hearing what she's saying. And I said, I have to say no. And my husband, who has a PhD and is very scientifically driven and is very much an analyzer, is saying to me, well, honey, you see, she knows, she has, you can trust what she's saying, because he too is looking at her awards and all that she's accomplished and how she was referred to us. And on the surface, it would make sense that I would have listened to her. Um, and then, of course, by the findings, it would make sense that I would listen to her. But I decided not to. So I said, sitting in her office, I said, I'm going to schedule the surgery because I am really scared. But I guarantee you I'm not going to have it. But I will schedule it. So her scheduling nurse came in. We scheduled the surgery. She was leaving for vacation. She told me when she would be back, I was going to be her first surgery when she came back. And I said, you should call in before you come back, because I'm sure I would have canceled the surgery. I just don't have the courage to say no right now. And this is like almost a direct quote. So I scheduled the surgery, and then I completely went into, I know my body better than anyone else. If I have this dis-ease, I didn't have it when I was born. So I've acquired it through my way of being. What way of being do I need to release so I can release this? So I got busy at doing that. And from that moment, it really changed. It up-leveled my understanding of my power, but it also up-leveled my ability to completely surrender and realize that even in the moment of fear, I can make the choice to move forward based on my fear response, because I was just to the surgery. But having the knowingness that I can change that whenever I want to, and I did. So that was it. It changed everything. So I did not have the surgery. I canceled before she came back. I've been fine ever since. No more blood transfusions and all those things, like nothing. It's like it never happened in my body.
Wow. What a powerful story of healing, and just really, surrendering and listening and trusting that you knew yourself, right? Like I love how you like you could schedule it, but I don't have the courage to cancel it right now. And that's so, like, how many times do we do that, right? Where we commit to something knowing that we're really not fully committing to it. Um, but what a beautiful story. Does anyone else have a pivotal moment where they shared and surrendered. I mean, I think we kind of shared a little bit in the beginning. You shared why you came to this. So maybe give us how it evolved for you over time, if that supports.
Sure. Yeah, so I did mention the cancer diagnosis. That was obviously a deep surrender. I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, there was a history of cancer in my family. And so I started receiving messages when I was diagnosed. It was not my time to die, and it was my job to heal the family pattern of dying from cancer. Now, I was also resistant toward getting the chemotherapy because I had seen what it had done to my family members. It is my humble opinion that in many cases it was actually the treatment that contributed to their rapid demise. So I was a little resistant toward getting the treatment. So part of the surrender was actually surrendering to getting the treatment because it was a very fast growing, very rapid growth, aggressive cancer. Just to give you some context, it was already the size of a grapefruit inside my chest, compressing my heart and my lungs when we had the first CT scan. And then 1 week later, I had the PET scan. It had already grown a centimeter in each dimension, length, width, height, or yeah, whatever, 3D. So it was growing very quickly. So had I let it go and not taken, any kind of steps quickly, like my left lung might have collapsed pretty shortly afterward, for example, things would have gotten way more complicated. And I was lucky that I called out my doctor also just to say, like, I trusted my intuition pretty deeply on this one. I was like, I need a CT scan this afternoon. They were like, it doesn't work that way. You need a reason and it needs to go through insurance approval, all of that. Well, guess what? Everything flowed and I did get it that afternoon and I was right. Didn't want to be right. But had I not surrendered to that path, like I don't know. I know that part of because I also did all of the stuff on the side to heal myself before I even started treatment. So I know that my path was integrative. And I still have to write this book too, but because people are in either camp in many cases. It's very black or white. It's like, you have to do this, or alternative is con artistry and like whatever. But I very much believe that where most people's mindset is at currently, they're not quite ready to put full faith in alternatives. So there is a very deep need for that middle path. And completely throwing all the integrative stuff by the wayside is very, very harmful and detrimental for people who are going through the surgery, the chemotherapy, and the radiation. So if we embrace the path and I know that there's a lot of improvements being made, it's just like everything is so distorted and money driven in that side of things too. So there's a lot that needs to be fixed. I very much believe that we have the capacity to self-heal personally. And I know vast majority of the population isn't ready for that. So if we can normalize the integration aspect, I think that is so needed right now. And so for me, the surrender was actually surrendering to needing or, going the path of getting chemotherapy, because that's part of my story, and showing people that they can recover from the chemo brain and from the gut health issues and not having scanxiety, because I never got a scan after my remission scan. And I'm good, like there's just so much power in me having done both that initially I was resistant toward the so yeah, it's just interesting. And then my path unfolded in so many different ways. I could go on and on about the surrender, but it's just an interesting nuance to the surrenders. I actually had to surrender to needing the mainstream treatment, or needing is maybe a relative term, but it seemed to be my path. So that's what came up for me right now.
Amanda, I want to add to that I completely concur with you. It is a journey. We do live in a Western society. We believe in our doctors. Had I not gone to the doctor to get the diagnosis, I wouldn't have known how critical the situation is or was, right? I knew when I had to get blood transfusions, my inner knowing said, oh no, you've got to get that. Had I not gone to the doctor, I would not have known that. So I completely agree that we get to use both. It's not an either or at this point of our experience in society. I think it's a and. There's the and. You do the and, right? Because there is great breakthrough and things that can happen from using traditional medicine. And there is self-healing, and there is alternative medicines. There's all of that. So it's and. Just find your pathway. It's going to bring you, the collective us, you, into a state of the health and the vitality that we can have, no matter what that situation is medically. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that Western medicine philosophy that so many people are so attached to. It's always struck me, why am I treating the symptom? What is wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Don't don't give me something to calm the eczema on my face from an allergy. Why am I allergic? Am I going to die next time I eat something? Like that's what I need to know.
Mhm.
And I did have not anything as dramatic as you guys, but I have a thyroid issue and I was on medication for a good year. And it actually made my exhaustion more. I was sleeping more during the day. Like I literally hit a wall. It's probably similar to chemo brain. Literally hit a wall. And I'd sit down when I stopped and look. I had little kids at the time. Look at my kitchen going, oh my God, I have to make dinner. I can't even get up from this couch right now. And something that would take me normally 20 minutes, half an hour to make would take me an hour and a half because my brain just wasn't functioning properly. And the exhaustion was 10 times worse on the traditional medication. And everybody's like, well, you haven't tried it. Maybe you have to adjust your things. I said, I've tried that. This is not for me. Well, you should try it. You should keep trying it and I've given it a chance. Every fiber of my being says no, 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 no. And I went off it and felt so much better and tried a natural thing for a bit, more natural medication, and then have been off that for a few years because I don't need it. I know what my body needs. So I like you, Rashawn, did energy healing, and like you, Amanda, did energy healing and healed a lot of ancestral stuff, healed a lot of past life stuff, healed a lot of stuff from this life, and I'm still healing it. But I know what my body needs. And as soon as I get any of those traditional medications, even something for a headache or sore throat, if I'm taking medication over the counter, it's really bad because I it messes up my whole system. My body can't digest it. The energy of the medication, my body just fights back from. And I'm so much worse off when I take traditional meds than self-healing. That's all I have to say.
Yes. And that brings me to just a quick little tangent on energy healing, right? So there's so many modalities out there, and I'm sure that if we were to really put them on paper, they will all have like a birth in one lineage, really. But like essential oils are something that I really use a lot for healing, for pain, for mental distress, for when I'm tired, when I'm hormonal. And then the other thing that I do also is well, now I'm forgetting. There was energy medicine that helps me to come into myself. And now I'm forgetting which one it was that I wanted to bring up. But there's so many different energy tapping, EFT. Like I was able to heal that chronic hip pain that I think you guys have heard me speak on before by just asking questions and going and getting intimate and surrendering to it, right? And trusting myself that if I really want, the intention was to release it, that I would heal from it. Right. Oh, that was what I was going to do. Muscle testing. So muscle testing. And there's muscle testing where you can get your supplements or food, whatever it is that you're going to have that day. Because we all know bananas are good for us or oranges are good for us. But sometimes it's not really agreeing with your body. So anytime you're going to test something, there's a way to hold it right in front of your like solar plexus, taking a deep breath in. There are other muscle testing. Somebody can test it for you just to see if that maybe you shouldn't be taking 3 of iron. Maybe you should be taking 2. Obviously, you shouldn't be taking iron without prescription, but you know, there are ways that you can test to see if your body, if you don't have that knowing and hearing your voice, those are ways that you could physically test to see if what you're about to take, medication, over the counter, supplements, any of that, if it's going to be good for your body in that moment. So get curious about your body and what it's telling you, because anytime there's pain, anytime there's discomfort, your body is saying, hello, pay attention to me. There's something over here. And I think we all kind of talked about, right, the fears that you guys have faced in the moments of surrender. And that was a question that I had, but I feel like you guys have all kind of shared that. And so, yeah, so describing the actual moment where you actually felt that it was a strength, surrendering to it. Because I think sometimes people feel surrender is a weakness. Oh, you're surrender, you're giving up, right? Like, was there like a moment where that shifted for you in how you saw surrender as a strength over a weakness?
Yeah, I think
Like
so.
when you were young?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think it's more recent, but it goes tandem with trust because you can't surrender unless you trust. And now it's such a big thing for me, surrendering to whatever is coming at me. And every time I do that and just trust the process of whatever I'm going through as I elevate, then it's a very dramatic elevation because I've given over to higher power, source, the universe, whatever it is, that this is the best and the right thing for me to do. And I've been going through, I don't know if anybody else is going through some energy stuff right now. There's a lot of moving parts right now in the universe. And I have been out for about, well, it started on Sunday. And this is the last bit of it. That's raised like a hive. But I usually manifest my release on my face and my neck. So that was on my face earlier this week. But it's just surrendering. Okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm canceling everything and just resting. That was Monday, Tuesday, because I was just like, I'm no good to anybody right now, so I'm just going to rest. And even the rest of the week, this is my only thing today. I had a lunch date yesterday, and it's surrendering. Okay, this is what I need right now.
Yeah, I'll just hop off that because I've been feeling the exact same energies all week. It's been intense. Today is the wolf moon, and Pluto moved into Aquarius on Saturday. So it was a massive transition. Pluto is god of the underworld. And mine happens to be in Scorpio, which is the watery depths, very intense. I also have my South Node in Scorpio and Saturn. So anyway, I've been feeling it super intensely this week, got my cycle, all this release energy is really working through. So yeah, I physically had to surrender pretty deeply this week as well and just say, okay. And then so I'll just share this little story because I was planning to share it because it's a very poignant, immediate example of surrender. So there's a whole backstory, and I'm not quite ready to share like the full journey of the portal of surrender I've been in, but most people would not believe my story. Most people would be like, that's insane, of just the last few months of my life. But I I have basically just been in the flow, not really knowing like where I'm going next. And just I knew I had to come down to Florida to get my stuff out of storage and stuff like that. And the other day, 2 days ago, I saw a cute little Shetland pony on Facebook. I was like, oh my God, this is the cutest. I really want one. And I just said it out loud to my friend. I was like, look at this cute pony. I really want a pony. Like, in 5 years, 10 years, God knows when, I'll have a home and a little farm with a pony or something. I don't know. And it was kind of just a silly passing comment. Well, I know it's time to move on from where I've been staying, but the clarity as to where to go, even if it's like across the country or, you know, in the next town over, has not been there. And my friend was like, hey, this woman has this place on a horse farm. And it turns out she's got a little pony. And she and I connected on the phone just yesterday. And it looks like, I mean, I'm going to go and meet her on Tuesday officially, but we both totally vibed. And, you know, there just seems to be a ton of alignment. And I'm just like, I just was laughing because that's literally how my life has been going. Like I had no plan. And then all of a sudden, oof, like the most random little synchronicity came into place. And there you go. It just, I mean, you know, it just feels like it is going to happen. So it feels okay to say it out loud. But yeah, so that's really a microcosm of how my entire life has been for the last few years. You know, everything has been in flow, trust, and surrender to the signs and the synchronicities. And it's like feathers and signs from the universe come into my world to confirm, and it's brought me deep onto this spiritual path as well. So roses and feathers quite literally were coming into my field and guided me toward this priestess course a couple years ago. And the amount of signs and synchronicities that guided me there, had I just said, oh, that's silly, and like walked by the rose and not picked it up and you know, like I might not have surrendered to the knowing that, yes, I'm meant to invest in this year-long deep devotional commitment of a path. And it might have just delayed. I'm sure I would have found something else at some other point on the journey. But my point is, the more we surrender, it's surrendering the ego. It's not surrendering power. It's surrendering the ego will to control. And it is actually ultimately way more empowering to let your soul lead, to let your heart lead, because then you're living a soul-led life and it's in the direction of your true legacy. This is the time of building our deep soul legacy this year in particular. So the more deeply we can surrender what our ego mind thinks we should do. So it's the surrendering the should is how I really see it. That's when things really open up. And that's when we actually become, ironically, perhaps to some paradoxically, more empowered, because we feel in more alignment and we feel uplifted and we feel like, okay, yes, I'm getting all this clear confirmation from the universe that is lifting up my heart and my soul into this joyful essence. And that's really how we're supposed to be living, like in the flow and full of joy, and really just allowing our heart and soul to guide us. And that's totally opposite of how we've been living. Literally, it's a complete paradigm shift because we're doing a 180. We've been living in the inverted matrix, and we're actually putting everything right again. We're returning to the organic way of life, which has just been totally cut off. So for me, it's actually quite empowering to surrender. So that's a nuance that I've really had to learn in a very deep way. And it's been a journey. I started my journey, actually, I could even say 15 years ago, more like when I was 23, I went to India and did yoga. And then I kept trying to fit myself back in the box. And then the cancer came in to be like, no, girl, you've got to listen. And so here we are. But yeah, for me, that's what I really see surrender as. It's the surrender of the ego. It's the surrender of the control.
Oh, sounds like you're a powerful manifester now that you're aligning and surrendered and trusted yourself, right? Like you think, you say, and then it's like, okay, girl, I heard you.
Well, yeah, that's the instant manifestation that a lot of people are talking about. It's a very different form of manifestation than, you know, the law of attraction and all of that. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work, but it's like, okay, where is that vision coming from? And when it's coming from the heart, then it's going to align. But you really have to be in that energy of deep trust. And like, it's a certainty level thing too. I mean, even people like, even the more masculine forms of manifestation do talk about that certainty. There's no attachment to it either. Like, I wasn't attached to having a Shetland pony tomorrow, but things just aligned in such a way that my ego could never have figured that out for me, so that's how it means, like, to manifest from that kind of space is so different. It's very different mode of operation. It's the divine feminine energy taking the lead is what it is. And we've been so masculine oriented. So it's allowing that feminine essence to manifest from that space of trust and surrender. And it's not going to look like what you thought it would many cases, most of the time, but it's going to typically be even better than you could have hoped for.
Rashawn, Renee, anything come up for you?
So much. Yeah.
Oh, I know. There is. We could literally talk like 4 hours on this particular topic.
Just this part alone. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll say what I'm aware of is that 100% trust goes with surrender. And for me, once I started trusting myself more, then I was able to more deeply surrender. And now I live my life in perpetual surrender. And watching the manifestations happen like this is my experience. And I was just saying to my mentor this morning, a couple of days ago, got on a flight, went to LA, landed there, and was greeted at my appointment by a friend who said, "When you get to your appointment, I'm going to be there." And I was like, "Really?" "Yep. And I just need 5 minutes. I know you'll be early. I just need 5 minutes." And there's a bracelet that he gave me, and the bracelet said abracadabra. And he said, "Do you know what abracadabra means?" And I was like, "No, but it is with magic." He said, "It means that which I speak, I create. And it happens in an instant, abracadabra." I was like, I did not know that. So I put on my abracadabra bracelet. Then he gives me a mustard seed. See how small that mustard seed is? You could barely see, right? That's how small. It gives me the mustard seed and gives me an envelope. And the envelope is from Bank of America. And it has a significant amount of $100 bills in it. And he says, "You don't owe me anything. I was led to give this to you because your life is abracadabra." Now, in that moment that it happened, not that I was expecting it, not that I had any thought of any of that, but instantly I thought, of course you would show up. And you meaning whoever it would be, because that's how my life is working right now. And whatever I seemingly need at the moment is just coming however it's coming. And so I am the experience, as I'm sitting here right now, of abracadabra. I'm the experience of surrender and not being concerned at all of the outcome, Amanda. Just like, oh, I like that. I'd like to have that. Yeah, it's amazing. If I just go over the things that happened within the last 7 days, they're almost unbelievable. And it's because I made a commitment just about 7 days ago that I'm lessening the gap from what I think and will allow to come in and what I hear before I do it. So because I've shrank my gap, the universe has shrank its gap. So now I'm thinking it's happening. I'm thinking it's happening. I'm thinking it's happening. Yeah.
That gave me chills.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, let's to shortening our gap, everybody. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Allison, anything came up for you on that? There's a lot of like, I'm taking notes. There's a lot of great tidbits. The abracadabra thing,
Yeah,
what?
love that.
Magic,
Yeah.
deep soul legacy,
Yeah.
soul, live a soul loved life. I'm like, beautiful, beautiful shares today.
So legacy, yes, yes.
Yes,
Goosebumps all over. Just
I
say
know.
I have.
I'm aligned with everything that Rashawn Renee and Amanda said.
Mhm.
It's the ego part is the key because we've been taught out of our heart-centeredness, out of our intuition, out of our gifts, out of our soul alignment. And we're supposed to be in this box. We should be in this box. As soon as we add should, we're off track. And so much of society, I'm in a city of 4 million people. So there's a lot of energy around that I'm always combating. I'm an HSP empath, so really high end. I'm in a quiet area, but if I go out, I'm just overwhelmed by all of the energy around me because it's so heavy and it's so egocentric. I'm constantly battling it. So there's that aspect for anybody who might be watching this that you have to be aware of what's coming in as well, because we're, especially in the Western world, this egocentric world. So I feel like I'm always combating that and trying to hold my own space. Sometimes is really difficult, especially if I've been out in crowds. But surrender 100% when I can get into that divinely led place and just let go. And I consult my cards frequently. It's an amazing deck. um, it's just magic, and I'm still healing, and I'm still processing, and I'm still going through my own journey. But my elevation is so fast when I do take that ego out and just say, okay, I'm done. I'm overwhelmed and done. Source, divine, God, the universe, just help me. And it just goes quickly from there. Yeah. I could pull a card if you want.
Yes,
This is a
I
great
think
deck.
so.
There's
Yes.
no, it's a fabulous deck. There's no
Judith Orloff. Yes, do one
there's
because
no book. There's no book, but they're beautiful cut. Like, look at that. That's the outside.
oh
That's
yes.
stunning.
Love
Yeah.
I'm gonna order them on Amazon today.
And we have, I don't know if they're on Amazon. I don't know if they're on
Ah,
Amazon. They might be. Uh, yeah, this is so welcome. I've got my light too, because here in Toronto, I think we've had 3 days of sun in the last 5 weeks.
Where are you, Allison?
I'm in Toronto.
Honestly, not that different here in South Florida. They're
Oh,
covering the
really?
sky. Yep,
Mm,
yep. We've had
they're
very
covering your
little sun.
sky.
Yeah,
We had the most dense fog yesterday, all day. Soup
hmm.
was the weirdest thing ever. Okay, ladies, there were 3 cards popped out, of course, on the floor.
Love it. So I definitely feel that when people chime into cards that are being read, like there's a message there that you were meant to hear, that you were called to. So for those of
Mhm.
you out there, like lean in, get curious if there's a message here for you today on
Mhm.
surrender. I feel a lot of us have a misconception and finding it hard to surrender.
You know what? 3 came out. I feel like I need to just have one.
Now,
Yeah.
I've noticed too that when I surrender to not having it have it look a certain way, like letting the control of that ego, as was mentioned, opportunities do come to me.
So
Like
as I'm shuffling to flipped over, surrender to
this must be it.
effortlessness.
Yes. See, don't make it hard,
Stop pushing
guys.
so hard. The art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. And that's totally it. If you've ever been stuck in the mud or in snow and you're going, you can't get anywhere. But if you back off, just let off your your um your senses to push. But if you just back off, you get some leverage and then you can go get some traction. Surrender denial. Accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties. Then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions.
I love that.
Fabulous deck. Consult it all the time.
There's a message
Highly recommend.
Yeah,
I
so
do
what
not
advice
make any money from this recommendation.
So what advice would you give someone who's struggling with the concept of surrender and or finding it difficult to let go, or in being in that not being able to be in the denial, surrender denial?
We're in a instant gratification society, and everything is push, push, push. And when you push, you hit a wall. You'll eventually hit the wall where there's no pushback. It just is stasis. But if you just release and let go instead of pushing and forcing it, it just is going to start flowing for you. We need the time, we need the moment instead of always pushing forward. Because people are in do, and they have to be.
Be in the surrender. Be in the detachment. Be in the trusting. There's a message there and a path that aligns.
Because there's so much in the go, do. Here's my checklist. Do. You have no time to actually digest your circumstances. You're just always in the pursuit of something. But when you stop and literally smell the roses or take in the energy, take a breath, then you come back into yourself and out of that ego-driven go. I've got to meet the Joneses and be better than the Joneses thought pattern of the Western world for the most part, and come back in. You can really get back into your heart.
I think too, sometimes we get stuck on the whole, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the internet, like we can come up with like the most random scenarios of like, well, yeah, if that happened, hopefully you won't stay on the call. But like, we get to the place instead of just making a decision, surrendering to that and going, okay, well, yeah, this is it. This is what I want. This is what aligns. And then just taking action into getting towards that and not thinking that it has to be looking a certain way. Because sometimes we try so hard on making something happen and we have that door, like you said, that pushback, and then we think that we did something wrong. We think that maybe we're not on the right path. We think maybe we're not good enough, or it's not meant to be. But a lot of the times it's because we're trying to make it look a certain way. We're trying to have it be this way when it's like reality, your higher intelligence wants you to be on this path. And you're like, you keep pushing and wanting to and being on this one when it's really not what's aligning with who you truly are.
It's also worry gets in there too. People worry about so much and they have no control over it. What is it? 99 or 97% of what people worry about never actually happens. And that's being in your ego, worrying, trying to control it. But if you just let it go, my mom's a worrier. So she asks me something all the time. Says, oh, well, what about fires off a bunch of things. I said, I can't control this. Why am I going to spend time worrying about that? I can't believe that you're not thinking about this. Not going to do me any good. I can't do anything about it. And just that mentality of constant worry.
Yeah, I think that it's my experience that in this current culture of our societal conditioning, you just talked about it, Alice, in the go, so you never get to pause, right? And then because of that, we take on the energy that we captured from the womb, whatever that energy was. Then we take on the energy that's in the world, whatever that is. And then we become these people of let's just do, let's just move, when each of us, and this is a blanket statement for everybody because we've all come from the same source, each of us know that that which created us created us. And in that blueprint, our original DNA, we know that there's nothing to worry about. We know that there is nothing to stress over. And from my way of thinking, I think that the reason that so many people right now are feeling like, because to Amanda's point, we're at a place in this heightened energy of our soul, which is our original DNA, which is our original calmness, peacefulness, loving, acceptance. We know that. That's deeply rooted in us. But we've been conditioned out of that. And we're all looking for that again. We want to go back to our original way of being. That's really what's happening. And now it's brilliant that you're having this conversation, Margarita, about surrender. So hopefully people that are listening will realize it's not an automatic like, oh, I'm just going to go surrender. It doesn't happen that way. It is progressional, and there's so many layers to get to the place that you can even trust yourself enough to go to your original blueprint and trust, and then move forward in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Rashawn. I was gonna reiterate that too, is that it's a journey. It's not something that you just decide one day and it's that easy. For the vast majority of us, it's many layers of the deconditioning and unlearning that we have to move through. And I'm still moving through it on the regular. This week itself has been a portal. I did a ceremony on Saturday, and like it was like, whew, that unworthiness. I had a whole deep past life thing be released from my heart space. And it is very much about the being is very much about being in the heart. So I say this all the time. It's about being, not doing. We're surrendering the mind to the heart and allowing the heart to lead. But that's a journey because of the Cartesian dichotomy for hundreds of years, but also millennia, depending on how you delineate all of this stuff. But we've mind over heart has been the paradigm that we've been living in. So it's been very much rooted in ego, in mind, and there's been a total separation between the two. And so we're not just reuniting, we are returning to wholeness, remembering our innate wholeness, but it's also that remembrance that the heart is actually meant to be primary. And this is where the treasure is, or the treasure chest lies within our heart. And this is a really beautiful time to be doing this because this is the wolf moon in Leo. And Leo is about the heart space. So there's going to be a lot of heart healing happening right now as we record this for many people too. So it's just, it all ties together so beautifully when you really connect with the collective energies. But it's a journey. It is a journey. And trusting where you are on the journey is a huge part of the surrender, because like I've been on it for years. I still get frustrated sometimes. I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, another lesson, another layer. I get to learn more patience. I get to learn more surrender. So it's an ongoing process. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because it is important to reiterate that. Like, it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing blossoming. It's an ongoing surrendering that we're being called into. And you get to a certain point where it does start to click into place and become your way of being. And that sometimes it kind of clicks, and sometimes that click takes a little time to settle as well. So just want to reiterate that, like, we can make a choice and then we get to be that way, but usually that happens after being on the journey for some time now. Yeah, for most people.
Yes, and that was going to bring me back to the next thing is like there are definitely activities that help support us on this journey. Like there's mindful meditation, journaling is a really big one that I get to start practicing myself, you know. And then there's yoga and body movement that really helps to kind of just get to into you, into your body and who you are. Being out in nature, being quiet and just you know, being one with nature really helps to bring out any healing and connects you with your higher intelligence. You know, going and taking workshops or being with other supportive groups who are on the journey. And I think one that I really think that doesn't get mentioned often, but is definitely taking a resurgence out in therapy is art expression, right? And so like allowing yourself to surrender to art without it having to look a certain way is a good practice of surrendering and what it looks like and what it feels like. Like, don't go in there with like a certain idea of what you want to make or a goal or what's it going to look like or judge it. Just let go. Just the act itself of just letting go, whatever comes to mind, whatever the first thing, the instinct comes and letting go and doing that, that's a great way to start practicing surrender in your energies. And then you get to see the aftermath and you're like, wow, look, what was I feeling in that moment? It was beautiful, whatever I let go. And that's what I created. What are some of the things that you have done that really supported you in that practice as you've learned to surrender and come home? That's why I love this series that got born, the Coming Home to You series, you know, and it's been, I think, 8 weeks now, and they've all been like things and ways of coming back home to you. And I love that surrender is gone. It's like perfectly in the way that they've gone organically and week to week. Last week it was trust. This week is surrender. Next week is acceptance. And I almost feel like, you know, trust, surrender, and then accept. It's such a beautiful thing. But what are some of the practices or activities that you are currently doing that really supports you in this journey?
I think just touching back on what you said in terms of letting go, there's a huge piece of it that people have to get rid of, which is judgment and being judged. So you can't let go until you're okay with not caring about what people think. I used to go into those art sessions and different things like, oh, what are they gonna, I can't draw. What are they gonna think? But nobody cares. And until I stopped caring, I couldn't do it. So that's the one piece of that. Meditation is my thing, and energy healing. I probably do an hour to 2 hours, 3 hours energy healing a day right now, just because the world needs it. I need it. My people need it. But meditation, I love. Yeah, just being still, quiet, a little bit of journaling and
Yeah.
nature.
And Nate, oh, 100%. 100%. We've got to have the nature in there, 100%. Um, One of the things that, or several things that support me, and meditation. And over the last week, I've been doing affirmations throughout the day, listening to a guided affirmation just anytime that I can. It's in my ear. The earbud is in there. If I'm walking to go powder my nose, I put it in there. And it's been so supportive of the journey that I spoke about earlier, the abracadabra, right? It's been just very supportive because the affirmation, I'm going to send it to Margarita so she could share it if she'd like. Um, it's been so beneficial in not thinking about the outcome, having a desired outcome and having no attachment to it in the instant. It's been so good for that. And then watching things show up in the instant because there's been no outcome. But there was a mindfulness of having that desire, and the universe heard it and responded so quickly. And I think that not I think, I am completely aware that these affirmations are supporting, the meditation is supporting, and the choice of whenever I see myself about to do a gap, to stop myself and move forward is also very supportive. So in one of the trainings that we're in, we hear you coach yourself, right? So in the moment of me doing an action that doesn't serve me, I'm coaching myself like, oh, wait, this isn't going to give me the outcome that I desire with no beat up. Just this isn't going to give me the outcome that I desire. And then maybe I still do it. Like maybe it's 5 o'clock and I'm like, nope, I know I should get out the bed. I know this doesn't serve me. And I'm like, well, how long are you going to stay here? 10 more minutes. And in the 10 minutes, do you promise that you will get up? Because now you're getting ready to make a commitment to yourself. And you want to be committed to yourself. You want to trust yourself. So think about it. If you want 20, this was this morning's conversation. If you want 20, say it now. Don't say 10 and then say 20. So what do you want? I'm like, no, I really want 20. Okay. And just having the love conversation with myself and then doing it, it's been remarkable. So those are some of the tools that are really supportive um, for me. And I highly recommend that everyone listening do them.
Yes, I love that. And yes, me wanting those affirmations,
I'm
girl.
sending it.
You
Yes,
know,
I will send them. Yes, yes,
can you
yes,
share
yes.
one with us today?
Yeah, so I have the ability to change.
Mm,
I mean, like, how beautiful is that? We all know it, but to give yourself permission throughout the day, I have the ability to change. So, all the conditioning that we were just talking about a little while ago, that conditioning is baked in, right? And then it's almost trying to take the chocolate out of a chocolate chip cookie. No, you just need to really kind of make a different kind of cookie. So, so what it's saying is, I can change and show up however I choose.
mm,
Wow. And then it makes it so easy because I've given myself permission throughout the day, listening to it, I can change. So it's just really
yes.
wonderful.
What I'm hearing you saying is just really reframing those limiting beliefs, right? Those beliefs that we have that we say to ourselves, we can't do that. I'm not good enough. So just reframing those and having them be on the positive side, right? Of the growth and not in the negative.
Yeah. And I would say if we're gonna go in that way, Margarita, I would add to that when a tape has been playing so long of unworthiness, to go from I'm thinking I'm unworthy to automatically, oh, I'm worthy, oftentimes that's a big leap. In the middle, like I'm unworthy, all the evidence in my life shows I'm unworthy, I'm not in a good relationship. So you give all yourself the evidence, right? So make yourself true, make it true that your evidence shows unworthy. And then say to yourself, well, what I'm choosing is to be worthy. And I don't even know if I know what that means. So, universe, show me worthiness. And then tell me that that's the feeling when it happens so that I can remember to repeat it because I'm unfamiliar with it. Like it's a real love conversation with yourself. It's not from from unworthy to worthy. It's never been my experience. It's not from my coaching. It's not from my way of understanding life. But what I just mentioned is. So that's the path forward.
That was beautiful. Like I really felt that. And I felt it as a way of falling in love with myself again. Right. You know, like really just taking those steps of
Yeah.
having grace and love and forgiveness for yourself.
It's the only way we can do it, or it becomes this pretend thing where we're out in the world like everything is so good. When inside you're like, right? But it looks good, but inside it's something totally different. But when you increment my experiences, incrementally learning to love myself and forgive myself. And in the program that we're in together, I have been saying that when they're like, what are you doing? I'm completely enrolling in my own life. That's my doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm here to be completely enrolled in my own life. And so as a result of that, everything else happens, right? So it is the incremental loving. It is the sweetness of opening the refrigerator getting the ice cream, putting 2 scoops in there, really wanting to put a third, and going, okay, why are you putting the 3rd scoop of ice cream in there right now? Because it's going to be so good. Okay. But did you just say, well, I'm putting the 3rd scoop, mind you, but did you just say to yourself today that you really want to be more mindful of your desserts every day? Yes. Did you eat dessert yesterday? Yes. Are you going to eat 3 scoops of ice cream? No. How many are you going to eat? 2. Then taking that scoop out right there and putting it back in the container without having a judgment, just recognizing like I'm growing and learning and being with me. And then that way I get to do that with you. So if you say something and it's not accurate, instead of being like, oh my God, that Margarita, she doesn't keep her word. She's this, she's that. I'm like, Grace. So then I'm going to call. What's going on? You're okay? Right? Like even last night when I texted you, there was no judgment. She's like, hey, this is what I think. Is this what's happening? You said yes. I'm like, cool. A prior me would have had a judgment because I would judge myself all the time. So, or not even judge, I had a rule about how things should be executed in every way instead of knowing that execution is only in the moment of it being done, which allows me to be present for everything. So, execution is only in the moment that we get to do it. And anything else is just make believe. It's not real.
There's so much freedom there. Yeah. And yeah, so letting go of that ego, that control, right? Having to look a certain way, the expectation, because then that could be a later resentment and creates distrust. And I love what you're saying, Rashawn, because it comes back down to having grace, being kind, and like talking to yourself. Like I'm hearing you saying like, ask yourself, why are you doing these? Like that's the only way to narrow the gap, is to when you're becoming really curious as to why you're doing certain things, and keeping your word and having a 10-10 relationship with yourself is key. It's key for building and creating that with other people around you. If you don't trust yourself, how can you trust others, and how can people trust you?
Right. And when you realize that sometimes you break your word to yourself, right? Sometimes you do, then you get to have a conversation with yourself about that. And then when someone breaks their word to you, you get to have a conversation with them about that. But you don't have a conversation with them about, You have a conversation like, wow, I can understand that you said X and you did Y. I've done that before with myself. So how can I support you in you being able to keep your word? Because it's going to help me support me in keeping my word, because I break my word too. Just a totally different conversation.
I heard nothing but compassion, empathy, and love in that.
Exactly. So it's
Thank
beautiful.
you. I just want to welcome Audrey and Tammy here today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Just if you want to
Thank you.
quickly just give yourself a 1-minute intro, and we brought you here on the topic of surrender. Audrey, can you go first?
Yeah, I'm Audrey Bronkema. I am like work-wise, I am a biomed. That is a biomedical electronic technician. I fix patient equipment. I did leave that job a year ago. I've just been nomading it and working on transforming myself and leveling up my leadership. And so I am here because it's on surrender, and I have had to do a lot of surrendering. That was one of my things was letting go and getting hung up on letting go. And so yes, the last month, well, the last year, but the last month especially, it's really hit me, and I've been able to surrender quite a bit. So yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for, go ahead. Yes. I was talking to myself over here. I was just saying, thank you for being here today. Can't wait to go a little deeper with you today, Audrey. Go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, so I'm Tammy McKinney, and I have a leadership consulting company, and I am joining this conversation because last week we were talking about trust. And as Margarita said, the next sort of integration is with surrender. And there's this balance of surrender and trust. So I'm excited to jump in and see where the conversation's going today.
Yes.
Yes, great to have you. So let's see. Anything, since you're here, Audrey, what was a pivotal moment for you in your journey of mastering your leadership and letting go of the life that you were living and the career that you were in? What was there a pivotal moment for you with surrender and the empowerment that it created in the shift?
I needed something different. That I was not there was something about my life. I wasn't happy. I was, miserable. And so I needed something different, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was looking for. And yeah, so I left work. I went into transformational, and in starting the transformational work, really looking inside, I realized that I had deep, feelings of where I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't feel worthy. Um, so many things, and deep-seated anger that I didn't even realize that I had. And then um the letting go part, I would allow myself to go so far, and it was protection. I was protecting me. I was protecting my heart, because I didn't want to deal with the emotional pain that I in my mind, I'm thinking of like all these, big stories of how horrible it's going to be and how much it's going to hurt and how sad I'm going to be, and I'm just going to cry and be, you know all emotional. Um and so I was protecting myself, because I would much rather have physical pain than emotional pain and heart pain. And so I was telling myself a story, and I came to the realization that, I was telling myself a story. I also was stuck. I was also stuck in story. And once I really started to be, I got to a point, and it was just before Christmas. I got to the point where I was like stir crazy, and I need something had to go. The not letting go part. It's like I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure out why am I not able to let go? Why am I not able to let go? Not really sure what it was, and then I got to a point where it's like something has to change, and I'm like reaching out to my mentor and to and my buddies, and it's like something has to change. I can't, there's something different. I know there's something better for me. And so then I was, one of the mentors reached out to me, and so she like walked me through, and I had to decide. I got to the point where I had to decide, in her working with me, that I was going to be totally honest. I was going to be open and honest about what I was thinking and what I was feeling, and like from childhood. And I got all the way down to where I realized I was like on my knees, and I was crying, and I was like mad at her because she was making me go there. And not that she was making me, but I realized I needed to go there. And so I was like crying, and I was, yelling at the phone. But I actually physically realized that it was me. I was in my way, and I needed to, it's like I get to let go of that. I was feeling, I got to the point where I believed that I deserved to die. I did not deserve to live, because of the way that I thought, and the way that I felt, and the way that I, the things that I did when I was a kid, and growing up, and all these things. Ultimately, I felt like I deserved to die, and I didn't deserve to live. Um, and so I literally saw that. I got to leave it behind. I got to, step into a new, a new life, a new perspective, a clean slate. And I've been able to like grow from there. So then, so my word for this year is trust. And so I'm learning to trust. I'm learning to trust me. I'm learning to trust, in God, my faith in God, because I've always desired like the really, really strong, spiritual relationship with Him, and not, aside from, I don't want the religious, I don't want the corporate religion, I don't want that. I just want a spiritual relationship with Him, and have that connection. And I've been able to experience that, and it's been amazing. But yeah, I had to come to a point where it was like an act of my will to surrender and to be radically honest. And so and just authentic. But I I say just before Christmas was that pivotal point, of where I just knew something had to happen, and I had to be honest, and I just was totally, completely open and honest. So
Beautiful. Act of will to surrender. I love
mhm.
that. And it's a choice. It's a choice. Thank you for sharing that story. And I also, coincidentally, right before Christmas, was also going through an act of surrendering and trust and being honest with myself. So thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of us could, around the holidays, could put ourselves in many situations where if we can just surrender, we and let go of the ego, that wanting to control everything, having to have it look a certain way, we wouldn't feel so bogged down emotionally, mentally, especially at the holidays. Tammy, is there anything that came up for you that you'd like to share?
Oh, so many things. So, as I shared last week, I work with a lot of corporate leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, and I think that they're mostly compassion-driven people. They're here to make a difference in the world. They're here to make an impact. A lot of them are what you would call compassion-driven professionals that ended up in leadership roles, and so their heart is in their mission. Their heart is in the impact they're here to make in the world, and so at their own expense, they often go all in, and they are, like many of us in whatever roles that you have in your life, whether it's being a partner or being a parent or in your career. Often, if you are sort of impact driven or purpose driven, you do tend to sacrifice yourself a lot and try to control things so that the outcome is good for not only yourself, but more importantly, everybody else. And so I think this idea of surrender is something that I've struggled with my entire life because I'm very self-sufficient, very codependent, self-dependent, and not as God-dependent as I want to be. And thank you for sharing that, Audrey. I think that's a big piece of my journey too, is to understand, that which we are charged with, that which we are called to, but knowing that we're not control of the outcome, right? Whether it's God or another a sphere of spirituality that you believe in, the idea that we can control everything is just not realistic for anybody. And so when we get super clear on what we're called to and what we're charged with and what our sphere of influence is meant to be, I think that's where surrender really has to come into play. We have to trust that if it's not ours, we need to get it out of our backpack, off our road, whatever all the analogies are, and let the chips sort of fall where they may, and trust that if we go all in on the piece that we're called to and we're charged with, that it's going to be the most fulfilling and joyful and rewarding for us, because that's our piece, that's our road to walk. And that there's also lessons. And so that not surrendering is not about giving up or failing or admitting that you can't do it or anything like that. It's about saying, that's not mine. I need to let it go. And I think that, again, whatever role or hats that you wear, this is very challenging, especially for people that care about doing meaningful work in the world, care about having meaningful relationships in their circle and not wanting the best for everybody. And just to share on a very personal level, I shared a little bit last week, but I was married we were together 33 years, and his addiction began to control his life as well as his mental health challenges. And for 33 years, I tried to fix it. I tried to be good enough. I tried to do all the things, right, the typical codependent would do. And oh, by the way, build a big career, have 4 beautiful children who then ended up between the 2 youngest in the hospital 17 times for suicidal ideation. That's all stuff I can't control. And so, I had to walk into each of those situations and just surrender and say, okay, what can I do? Like literally the first time my son went into the hospital, he was 12 years old. I checked him in the middle of the night on an iPad with a doctor that I could barely understand, and just walk away and not hear from him for 5 days. I mean, talk about surrender. This is my baby, and I had to just leave him there and trust that this is the help that he was supposed to get for that step. And then unfortunately it happened multiple times, but I'm happy to say that in the last several years, through my transformation, through my growth, through my healing, I've been able to just constantly, for me, go back to God and say, what do you want me to do? Like literally, I will do anything you call me to do, but make sure I'm not doing the things that aren't mine to do. And so, this is the whole balance, and not to get off on a whole separate tangent, but all of us can relate to this. Like the difference between empowering and enabling is a very fine line. And so, particularly when it comes to your employees or people that you care about at work or your children, my children, like knowing when to let them just keep falling and surrendering that, like, I've done what I can do. This is not mine to do right now. It's a challenge for all of us, but we also know that that line is crossed, and then we become enablers of the bad behaviors, right? And I've had so many well-meaning people telling me what to do and what not to do, but at the end of the day, only you can decide. Only you can trust your heart to tell you, is this mine to carry or not? And I pray about it, I journal about it. I mean, beyond measure, 2 hours of journaling some days, just trying to figure out the best next steps and what to surrender. And I think that for all of us, we're not intentional enough about that. We get our to-do list, we get our goals, we get our roles, our hats that we're wearing. I mean, raising 4 kids alone, right? Like I just did what I was supposed to do for everybody. And taking that space to just stop and say, is this mine or is this not? Am I supposed to be doing this or am I not? Is this aligned with the best version of myself and my goals, my vision, my priorities? Or am I just doing it because I think I'm supposed to, right? Or, for a while living in that survival and reaction mode and just wearing yourself out trying to fix everything. So yeah, on every level, surrender. And because I've been like, very successful for my whole life, and then all the stuff comes anyway. I mean, I'm, I guess, hard-headed enough to know that I have to experience it over and over and over again. Like, yeah, time to surrender again. Time to surrender again. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Yes, thank you for presencing that. Like there are different ways, there are personal, there's spiritual context when it comes to surrendering. So really it is about allowing yourself, right, to understand that you don't have control for the outcome. You have a control of your choice and how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And surrendering that there's a higher purpose or calling that is intervening at that time. And then just being there as support, for when those things come. And it can be a little scary. It can be a little scary because sometimes I think when we're not aligned, we almost feel like things just always are happening to me. Like, what do you say to those people who maybe are always feeling like the world is always coming after them? Like there's always death and gloom, because my experience also, maybe you guys can speak on this, is I get good news followed by bad news. Right. So it's like you want to make it like, what am I doing wrong? And sometimes just surrendering to that. And it's like, well, like, what am I surrendering to? Like, I don't know if anybody has any insights on what comes up for you as far as like moments when that feel unfair and that seem to be coming to you, like you're cursed in some way. Like how can you give people the guidance to trust and surrender in those moments?
I can speak into that. My life, and not just, there's a fine line between sharing your story when you've gone through a lot of shit and sounding like a victim. So I'm not gonna get into details and stuff like that. But what I've learned, because I've gone through a lot of nonsense, and part of that, in my humble opinion, because this is, I think, my big lesson. Well, there's multiple lessons, and I think that's part of it, is there's always a lesson, and there's always a form of empowerment. Once you learn the lesson and you go through the stuff, you become stronger. And for me, like, I have gone through a lot of very unfair stuff from a very objective perspective. And I just don't air my dirty laundry publicly, but most people have no idea some of the stuff that I've gone through behind the scenes. And the truth of the matter is, it's been really freaking challenging and very unfair from a very objective perspective. But I'm looking at it as like the slingshot being pulled back farther and farther and farther. And then what's going to happen is, as I release all of the layers of myself that allowed that behavior. So there is a lesson for us all in what we do experience. I know my soul contracted to have these experiences as well. So I could learn the lessons of having boundaries, of taking my power back, of learning my worthiness as well. Because when you have very firm boundaries and when you have a very strong sense of self, that stuff just can't even get to you. Now, there's so many depths, so much depth to this conversation of what we're going through collectively right now. External interference is a real thing. And I think that some of the souls who came here to be leaders and way showers contracted from a soul level to kind of experience that, to learn the lessons, to become even more empowered, and to gain true full insight into the depths of the darkness that humanity really has been in. And so that slingshot is just gonna shoot us farther and higher up to the stars. And so this is where humanity is going. Earth is ascending back into her starhood. So this is what we are doing too. And in order to do that, we have to remember our power, our worth, our wholeness. And that idea of healing back to wholeness was a phrase that came to me in 2019. I was doing a program that was honestly activating me to a level that my nervous system didn't have the capacity for yet. So for me, it's been a very visceral, physical healing journey of building my nervous system capacity to release all the trauma. We hold trauma. And, for many of us, it is going to be ancestral and past life beyond this current lifetime. But typically our current lifetime traumas, and I'm speaking traumas with a little t and a big T, I've been through all versions of it myself. But I can see the interlinking and intertwining energetically with things that my parents experienced, things that my grandparents experienced. And the energetic imprint is held within my body from what they passed down to me. So we're talking famine. So culturally, many of us have taken on these genetic ancestral lineage things to heal, and it'll show up in different ways in this lifetime, but it will come through in something that is energetically similar. And then you get into past life stuff. I had stuff finally removed from an ancient Egyptian past lifetime on Saturday, and I saw how everything tied together from this current lifetime to that incident in that past lifetime. So that might be a little woo for some, but there's a lot of there's a lot of layers here. And at the end of the day, though, I do think that it's, objectively speaking, it can be very unfair when people also target you and cast your name into the depths of the darkness, and it's a complete lie, right? That is really freaking unfair. And the truth always wins. The truth always prevails. So I've been trusting and surrendering that my time is coming, and that the more I take my power back, the more I integrate and embody my own worthiness, embody my own wholeness, to remember that I'm whole and holy, to remember that the divinity works through me because I have been operating in integrity. And the gaslighting and manipulation is their stuff that's going to come back to them. And so I don't have to worry about it. God's going to take care of it. And I just have to focus on myself and my path forward, because I have a mission, and I know that my mission is coming from my heart, and it's not, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing inherently wrong with me, but there is an energetic lesson of integration of my wholeness and worthiness and power that I get to experience from going through all of that shit, all of that darkness. And I feel that the people who go through, and there's a lot of people who have gone through much worse than I have. I'm fully aware of that. And is it fair that they go through that? No, but I do believe that we all have, our soul lessons are our own to experience, and whether we fully integrate in this lifetime or the next lifetime is totally up to the person's soul journey. But a lot of us are here to do it in this lifetime, especially if any of this is resonating with people listening right now. You're probably here to do it in this lifetime. So it's all here to empower us and to put us on the trajectory and path of our highest timeline. And when we have gone through so much stuff, it's because we have a big mission, and it's to prepare us for that leadership, because leaders in this world have to be really strong right now. There's a lot going on, and we're not just shifting paradigms, we're shifting into a whole new era, a whole new way of being, something humanity's never gone through. So we have to be super strong, super anchored in who we are. And so, one term that I've, put on it myself is energetic self-sabotage, the manifesting the good thing, and then something else falls out the back end. That's happened to me plenty. Had all the things I wanted for quite some time, was totally in the flow, and then things were like being stripped away. And I was like, what is happening right now? And there wasn't a level of interference and siphoning, and there's a level of my being needing to embody the wholeness. And so and the worthiness, and knowing that, if I had never given my power away, that never would have happened. So I personally feel it's the duality, but once we integrate that duality into that sense of wholeness, we become fully empowered, and our aura becomes unfuckable with. It becomes unshakable. So yeah, last week there was a lot of those bombs being dropped, and so let's keep it a little more PG. but, yeah, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. So for me, that's the lesson, whether that resonates with you or not. But that's very much been my experience.
Yeah. I liked how you brought in like the alignment and the wholeness, because anytime there's not alignment, then there's going to be friction, and no matter what it is. I have a friend who tends to we'll get on the phone, and she'll be telling me, oh, this good thing happened, but this bad thing, and this good thing, and this bad thing, or this bad thing, this bad thing, or it'll be negative. And I'll just let her share. I'll just hold the bucket, and she just, dumps. And then, we'll get to a point like in the conversation where, I'll just, ask her, different questions. But one of the things I'll ask her is, is it true? Because she'll be like, this always happens. This always. And I'll just ask her, is this true? And then she'll like, well, no, you know what I mean. And then she'll like backpedal, and then I'll just, ask her questions. And, as far as, what do you have control of? Is this something that you have control of? Is this something that you don't have control of? And just trying to get her, just to interrupt, her thought pattern and her perspective, and try and look at all these, different perspectives. So that's one of the things that I will do, like with her.
Yes, I think what I'm also hearing is when you are doubting yourself, you're not fully trusting yourself, like, and you're still, perhaps you're sabotaging yourself, right? Because you're making decisions that ultimately, subconsciously, are going to have like a back end over here that's going to be like, oh, yes, I just got a new job. Oh, I just got, $2,000 worth of, fixing my car or whatever. So a lot of the times we don't realize that the choices that we're making subconsciously, right? And these are those interrupting those patterns that we have had since we were kids. A lot of the times when we're not aligning and making choices that are really truly authentic to us, because we're either pleasing or we didn't listen to our little voice when it says like, don't make that decision. Those are like, it might not happen instantly, but eventually it does bring a situation that we get to look at and go, how did that happen? What did I do? Who was I in that moment of making that choice that got here? Because that's the person who's sabotaging you. You better name her and be like, girl, I see you. You're not invited to the party anymore.
Well, and I think to your
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
too, Rashana, go ahead. Did you want to say something, Rashawn?
Tammy, go ahead. I'll chime in after you finish.
Okay. Thank you. To your question too, like, what do you do when it feels like one step forward, 10 steps back constantly? And just May of last year, after several years of challenge, I was super clear it was time to launch another company, and it's a consulting company. And so it's more of an agency model. So it's collaborative, bringing in other people. The goal is to reach, millions of leaders, blah, 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 big goal, big vision. And had a big vision casting meeting, lots of advisors, had a whole board pulled it, all the things, everything ready to go. After all this time, like, it's time. The divorce is behind, the kids are somewhat stable for a minute, like, it's time, this is happening. Well, sure enough, I got COVID, and then my daughter ended up in a transplant hospital for 9 days. And then she, it was just months and months and months of, there was no way, there was no space, there was no mental, physical, anything, energy to make this thing get off the ground. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, did I miss the mark so badly? Like, is this really not what was supposed to be happening? And a friend of mine said, the vision is clear. The vision is solid. Like, there is no doubt about it that this is exactly what is the direction that you're called to go. There's no doubt about it. You're just getting a little tune up. And I'm like, okay, but did we have to like rip the engine out, break all the windows and pop the tires? Like, that all the wheels came off. And I will say, here we are, coming into this year, and I was able to progress several things last year, despite all the circumstances. A lot of the collateral we have to do for a new company, all of the legal and the marketing and all of that stuff. But coming into this new year and just being in a completely different place, having to surrender, like, okay, it's obviously not time. Like, everything was so out of my control that it was obviously not. And so this week I got a humongous contract, like huge, probably the biggest one I've ever gotten. And had I gotten that last year, there's no way I would have been able to fulfill. There's absolutely no way I would have been able to fulfill on that contract. And so all that to say, in the surrender, we can't see it, right? We can't see it. It hurts. It's disheartening. It's discouraging. And when it has happened, like, it's been 7 years of that, like, I thought we were doing this, and then I thought we were doing this, and then, right. And if I didn't do my year-end review for 5 days straight, I think I wouldn't be in the same place. But I literally went back through and said, here is all the things that I thought I was going to do. Here's all the things that I did do. Here's the important things that came out. Here's where I learned. Here's where I healed. Here's where I grew. And I was able to see that as much as I wanted to control some of those things and I had to surrender, that there was progress anyway. And so it doesn't even have to be at the end of the year, right? If you're in that season where you feel like you just can't get momentum, stop. Just stop and take that time to really reflect and say, even just take the last 12 months. What has worked? What have I done? Who have I become? What have I healed? Where have I been good at surrendering? Where have I been trying to control things outside? It is such a powerful time to just be with yourself and say, am I even going the right direction? And Audrey set us up. Is it Audrey or yeah, I don't know my glasses on. Audrey, set us up for that. And thank you for sharing your story, because it sounds like that's exactly what you had to do. You just had to stop and say, this is not working. And so anybody that's chiming in, hopefully that's why you're here. You want to return home to you, as Margarita so perfectly named this, right? We get to take that space to come back and say, I have done good things. My life is not a waste. There's been a lot of meaningful things, and I have grown and I have healed and I have developed and I am becoming the higher version of myself. And just like Amanda shared, like so many people want to share the struggle when they're in it because they so desperately want to help people from the struggle, but we have to give ourselves that space to really, really do the work on ourselves first. And we hear a lot of podcasts, we hear a lot of shows, we hear a lot of people that are coaches they just so desperately want to help, but then a lot of what happens, that pushback, that setback, those lessons have to be had because they haven't quite gotten to where they need to be to fully step into their power in that new calling or whatever that charge is. So anyway, yeah, this is a great conversation, and it's nice to be feeling a little bit, and of course we're never done with transformation, but a little bit the other side of seeing, yes, that all that bad stuff kept happening. And I always say this side of heaven, it's gonna keep happening, but I'm better equipped. I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm wiser for the next round, right? To keep staying in alignment with what I'm called to do. And I think that that's the goal for all of us, that we keep developing in the direction of where we're meant to go. So.
Yes, I love that reminder to pause and have a year-end review. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So what I wanted to add to this beautiful conversation is a couple of things. One, I so appreciated, Audrey, when you talked about having your relationship with God, not a religious relationship with God. And I think when we allow ourselves just to be intimate and have the relationship with that which created us, then everything starts shifting in our life.
Yeah.
Because you're having an intimate relationship with that which created you. And you don't need any intermediaries to help you with that. So one-on-one. So brilliant that you've come to that awareness.
Yeah, I agree.
And Tammy, when you talked about the lesson, I am a knower, an experiencer, a teacher, and a leader in this communication. When it happens for the reason, and you know the reason when you pull back the layer.
Yeah.
So there is nothing that's happening by happenstance, because to everybody, what the thread here that we're all saying is when it happens because we've got to learn from it. It's happened because there's something that needs to be pruned, be refined, be revealed so that we can step into our full space. And so when we step in it with our head up, our shoulders back, head high, knowing that whatever comes, it's okay because we will not be moved. And it's such a beautiful experience to be in the state of that understanding instead of trying to rush. Because there have been times in my life where I've tried to, I don't want to say I rush it, but I get to a point I think I kind of know everything. And then to Amanda's point, everything goes. I'm like, hey, what happened here? Right? It was a home run. What happened? Now, whenever that's happening, I get to pause and go, oh, where am I out of alignment with myself that's happening? And start having that loving conversation with myself. And right now, in the space that I'm in right now, as we are in this interview, there's something that I've been avoiding like my entire life. And I really do mean entire life. And I'll look at it and then walk away, look at it, walk away. So now it's here because what I'm to do in the world is here. And it's always been evident that my responsibility is a global one for people to learn to love themselves. So when I'm in my rooms with the executives and I'm going professionalism and personalism, they have to come together. You cannot excel greater professionally than you do personally. So we've got that part of the script, right? But with that comes, because I teach that, it's come to me like, now you're at this level. You're asking for the next level. So what's stopping me from the next level? And it's the one thing I never wanted to have ownership of. You heard me in the beginning say, completely enrolling in my life. So there have been aspects of my life that I've given other people control of. And for the first time ever recently, all of my finances, everything, I hired someone. I've always had someone, but like for me to look at it, for me to look at the money that comes in, the money that goes out, the money that goes to subscriptions, the money that I give away, the money, like all of that, and to look at it and not tell myself if I put it in the system on the computer, somebody's going to hack it and do all the stuff that I would make up that made sense for me to make up so I can stay disconnected from myself. And now looking at it and deciding, oh, wow. Now looking at this debt and deciding, I don't even want any of that anymore. Like, I think I just decide to be completely debt free and to look at the number and not be afraid of the number because now I've taken all power. And it feels so amazing that I'm like in awe of how amazing it feels and how great I feel like I get to do that. I get to be the testimony that says, I eliminated all that debt through surrender, through standing in my power. I did that. I get to say, I up-leveled this business because of that. Like all of it makes so much sense now. So I'm so grateful for everything that has seemingly not gone right because it's gone excellently instead of just right. That's it.
Beautiful.
That was a word for me.
Another word that's come through recently, because yeah, it's often this like the divine timing is a piece of it, but the divine timing is so that we can recalibrate and make those 1 to 2 degree shifts, which are usually internal shifts to make so that we can be energetically embodied, energetically in alignment. And I think if a huge collective theme right now take this as you want, but for me, I know that there has been like a deep layer of the humbling that has come through the journey because we're not supposed to be operating and creating out of our egos. And that doesn't mean that the vision doesn't get to be massive and powerful and impactful and legacy making. It just means that our vision is beyond us and we are a pure conduit, a vessel for God's creation to come through us. And I use God in like the highest source energy perspective possible, completely separate from religious dogmatism, just God's source energy, but whatever term you like to put on it, creation, source, intelligence. So for me, there has been a layer of the humbling that has come through all of the muck that I've gone through as well. It's like, my vision and intention weren't wrong, but there was an aspect of the ego that just had to get put aside, and the attachments had to be released, because our ego will say it has to look a certain way, or it has to go on this timeline, and that's the surrender. And it's really hard anytime, because you have real life things to take care of in many cases, like bills to pay and whatnot. But the more deeply you can surrender to God's will and the divine timing, the more things will fall into place in ways that you can't even imagine. And again, it will blossom more beautifully, and then it will be in much deeper integrity. That integrity piece is essential as we move forward into these higher frequencies of energy, as we shift collectively. It's very much about authenticity and integrity and operating from the heart space. So if there's any wiggle wobble room for your ego to be injecting itself into the creation, there is going to be a recalibration. That's anyway my experience and what I see happening for many people in the collective. So again, take it as it resonates, but that's been an aspect of what I know the journey has been for me. It's just like that humbling goes along with that deep surrender, humbling of the ego to the heart, to the divine, whatever you want to call it.
Thank you. And I just want to piggyback on that, because as I said, when I was having this vision casting last year, specifically what I prayed for that whole morning was just humble confidence. And then everything that ensued after that was definitely not about confidence. It was about humbling. But I get to step back in that confidence now, assured that, I had other priorities that needed my attention during that time, and that, the vision was still steadfast, and that I had what it take. I wasn't going to lose my ability to deliver on the vision, but the humbling really came from, it's not the time, it's not the right people, it's not the right place. Like, I just thought I had it all figured out, right? And so I think that idea of humble confidence, and then again, just knowing what you're called to do, but that you're not in control of the outcomes. You're not in control of the results, the timing, all of the moving parts of it. We just get to keep stepping forward with where we feel called to move it forward, without having to be the all knowing about how it's all going to go. That's where the humbling has to come in. So yeah, that's real good. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, I like how that you brought that up, because what's been coming up for me in this whole surrender and trust process is humility, and I keep getting the Hebrew word for humility, which is anava, and it means to take up space, is to take up your God-given space, and not that you're impeding on anyone else's space, because they have their own God-given space. So and that's something that has kept coming up throughout this whole process.
I like that. I'm gonna have to make that the word for the year, I think.
Yeah.
Can you share that word again? Yeah.
Anava, Anavah.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts before we get this call ended? Anybody, any takeaways you want to leave us with here, besides the ones that I have been making notes on?
Well, I think it's great for everyone listening to remember that as you're surrendering your life to your greater self, that it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So be gentle with yourself. Gentle means being loving with yourself, and be really honest with yourself. So you don't have to make quantum changes. You can make incremental changes. If you've been listening the whole time, you heard me talk about 2 scoops of ice cream versus 3, right? That just an incremental change. So whatever you need to do for you, allow yourself to be the change that you want to see and give yourself permission to change. You don't have to stay as you are. So the two things that I think will be pivotal for them to take away is it's a process and give yourself permission to change.
Love it.
I love that. Give yourself permission to change.
Yes. And grace. Give yourself grace and and no judgment. And that was, one of the things that I had to work through was, not judging myself. And just being open and I mean, just not even just honest with yourself, but I mean, just radically honest, just open up and pour it out. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, just let it out. If you're angry, let it out. If you want to yell and scream and kick, then just get on the floor and yell and scream and kick. Whatever you have to do, get it out. It gets to come out. Part of surrender is the act of the will to decide to do it. But then it's also, being, aware, being open, being vulnerable, and and releasing it. And to release it, you got to let it go. You got to let it out. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as I came into that season where the wheel started to come off again, I was fully committed to seek wisdom and understanding, like wisdom and understanding. And as I said, my Bible time, my journaling, my prayer time, all of it was seeking wisdom and understanding. And even in that, to understand, I was only going to get so far. Like, it's okay to want that wisdom, that understanding, to level up your confidence, to level up your faith, to level up your commitment. But at some point, you still have to surrender. Like, you're only going to get what you need for today. You're only going to get that wisdom and that understanding that you need for today. And so much of it is planted in your subconscious. We get to trust that it's there when we need it too. But surrendering to the idea that you have to have it all figured out all the time, because that is what just completely derails us, is because it's not possible. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Audrey, thank you for bringing up that vulnerability piece, the emotion, because there were a couple times in the conversation I was like, oh yeah, I want to mention that, and I don't think it happened. So yeah, I mean, we have major walls toward the experiencing and feeling of the emotions. So surrendering to the emotions can be so powerful because the catharsis is so real. I this weekend I went through it and I, shared, I was like, do that rage ceremony if you need to, let the tears out, let them flow. I had to, even get assistance with a deep layer of a wall, and it literally felt like my heart was being cracked open, and it hurt. Like, it really hurt. It's really hard. It can be literally painful on a certain level, but then the release is so palpable. It's so relieving when you do let it go, when you let it out. So surrendering to the flow of the emotions that want to come out, that want to come up, that want to be let go, and then surrendering to the flow of life is another thing that I talk about a lot, like the flow of inspiration, the flow of intuition, the flow of abundance and money. Like, don't restrict the flow. Like, self-inquiry of where might I be restricting? Where might I be blocking the flow of whatever wants to be flowing to you right now? Because you never know. If that's another thing. The ego and the control can put blinders on to other possibilities and options and opportunities that might be waiting for us to just turn around and notice it. So yeah, I think those are the things I would like to wrap up with. So thank you again so much. Beautiful conversation.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. So as everybody has said, such beautiful things. It is a journey, and we get to have grace with ourselves and being vulnerable emotionally with yourself, and allowing those emotions, whether they're anger, hate, fear, whatever they are, just to really come to the surface, and allowing yourself, getting to a pillow, go into nature and scream it out, stomp it out. As Amanda said too, like the rage stomping, the just screaming. You know, I have my coach now with breath work, and part of the journey that she takes me on is to have like a release. Holds your breath for like a minute and a half, and then the release is usually like a scream, whatever that sounds like. And that release alone really opens up space because it feels very freeing. So it opens up space for new things to come into your awareness and into your heart. Being heart-centered was what I heard too, and not being so much in your head, allowing freedom, forgiveness. Grace was something that I also heard, and that's something that really supported me, is to having grace, not being judgmental or critical of myself during the process, because that was definitely what gave me the ability to get intimate with myself and surrender, right? Because I started to trust myself. And giving yourself positive affirmations, as Rashawn Renee has beautifully presents for us, is so important. The self-talk that we give ourselves, and having that year in review, and showcasing all the things that we have progressed in our lives. Because in the moment, sometimes it feels like everything negative is happening to us, because that's what we only tend to focus on. And we forget the little triumphs, we forget the little celebrations. And sometimes we don't even celebrate the wins that we have in our lives. Maybe we get to start there. Every time you have a win, every time you have something that you feel like you felt good about, celebrate it. Like, actually do something to celebrate it, whether it's that extra third scoop of ice cream, right, Rashawn Renee? Is like, celebrate that win, because that starts to build trust and self-love and confidence in yourself and your ability, and bring a little magic in your life, because you are abracadabra, baby. That's another really beautiful one, staying in your personal power, right? And figuring out, like, when you can stay in your personal power, allow yourself to surrender and forgiveness and grace, you start to narrow that gap, and manifestation starts to just happen the moment you think about it. How many times are we like in the world going, I watched The Secret, but I still don't know what the secret is because it's not happening. That's the secret. The secret is to really get intimate, go in deep, and align yourself with who you truly are authentically in your heart of hearts, not what the ego wants, but what the heart says. And, like, releasing and being in the flow and just letting things be as they may, and not being so stuck up on the outcome of things. So next time, my friends, I want to honor and thank you for being so generous today on this call. Thank you for your wisdom. And if anybody wants to reach out to any of these beautiful speakers, reach out to me. I'll be happy to connect you with them. So until next time, as I like to say, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, keep your energies flowing, and remember, coming home to you is not hard, but it starts with a choice, and you don't have to do it alone. So reach out, and we're here. Until next time, be well.